Hello everyone. In this video, I want to show you an example of a code that I wanted to write in MATLAB, and I decided to first give it to ChatGPT, see what it can do for me. So I told it to write a MATLAB code that creates an image of the United States flag and displays it, right? And you see here, it told me that, hey, creating a detailed image of this flag in MATLAB could be quite complex due to precise placement of stars and strips. But I can provide you with the simplified version of the code that basically does not have the stars. And here the code that it wrote is very short, so I doubt right off the bat whether it would do anything and it would produce any meaningful results, okay? And of course, it considered the size of that flag very small too for MATLAB to show. And you see that it considered the height of each stripe to be like 1 pixel. But anyways, I copied the code, and here is the code. And interesting enough is when you run it, it doesn't even run. It gives you error. Look. Here we go. It says, hey, line 9, when you go here and do this rep mat, okay, if you divide flat height and flat width by 2, where your height is going to be divided by 2 is 3.5, and this is 6.5. And guess what? You cannot repeat a matrix with the numbers that are non-integer. So it did not even bother to add a fix or a round command here to make it right, or at least do something so these guys turn up integers, right? So it's clearly, and right off the bat, it's something that it does not consider. And then it used this canonical product and everything. So even if I change this to something, right, and I make this, because this is, you cannot really change that, right? You know, you have 13 stripes and there are 7 reds and 6 whites. So there is nothing you can do for these, and these are not flag width and flag height. Okay, especially the height part of it. So the size of the picture should be different than the number of, if these are numbers, then you should not call them width and height. This is just the number of stripes, all of them, and this is just the number of red stripes. So you see, even the comments are kind of misleading. And then considering the size of a stripe, the height of it to be 1 pixel, guess what? You cannot see that. One of the things I had to do for my own code, I created this star, and I'll tell you later why. And this guy is 20 by 20 pixels. And look how small it is. Now consider something to be 1 pixel wide or something. Okay, so it's not gonna work, right? So it had error, and then when even you go ahead and change this and run it again, it's not gonna give you anything, and this is a complete failure of the code. So as I said, for basic tasks or for tasks that there is relevant data on the web, it can do a good job. But if you surprise it with something like this, that it has never seen an example, then it might be really in a shock. And you see here, it says, I create something with 13 alternating red and white stripes and a blue rectangles for the stars. You have to manually add the rectangles. So clearly it's missing. Again, you see the code is not working. And so it says it might need more complex image processing techniques, okay? And it's not super complex, but you need to know something to perform that task. So if you want to do some more advanced tasks, do not hold your hopes so high of ChatGPT doing the job for you. So here, I'm gonna show you how I did it myself. So instead of like 14 or 15 lines of code that this guy had, okay, or 24, of course, there are a ton of comments and space and so on. So my code has to be a little bit more, and I consider several parameters here, and I'm gonna explain how I did it. So I'll tell you why I had to create that star ping image because the stars that you can add in MATLAB are not really that good of a star, and I show you. So the first thing I do, I read that star image that I showed you, 20 by 20 pixels, which has blue and white stars, and I'm gonna add them in all the positions I want. There are 50 locations to add it. Here I say I have 13 total stripes, and the height of each stripe is 50 pixels. So the total height of my flag is going to be the number of stripes times what? Times the height of the stripes, which is 13 times 50, 650. And the width of the each stripe, what I did, I found on the web that the aspect ratio of the US flag is 19 to 10. In other words, the width of the flag is 19 and like the height is 10, so the ratio is 1.9. So whatever this height is, 650, you have to multiply it by 19 divided by 10, or multiply it by 1.9, and that number could be a non-integer number. So you have to use this fix operator to convert it into an integer number. Remember, whenever you work with images, everything has to be integer. The size of the image, the location of the pixels, and everything. You cannot have decimals here. So here I did that, and that guy, I guess it was like 1350 or something pixels. The other thing I did, I added some border to the image, because if you don't, then it's not going to be so nice. So I considered 2 pixels on the 2 sides, left and right, and above and below, that I just do black, so I can see a border for the image. So now what I do is, first I create what? 13 alternating red and white stripes. How? Look. I say go ahead and fill the entire image for me with black. So I say channel 1, which is red. Each RGB image has 3 channels. Channel red, channel blue, and green, and channel what? Blue. Remember, it's RGB, red, green, blue. And you have to define these channels separately. So I say fill in for me channel 1, which is red, with a bunch of zeros. Similarly, channel 2 and channel 3. What does this do? It makes it all black. So right now, your entire flag is all going to be black. And what's the size of this? The size of it is going to be the flag height plus 2 times border size, and the flag width times 2 times border size. So basically, if the height is 650, since I have 2 pixels black on the top and 2 pixels black on the bottom, so I should have 4 plus 650, 654. So if I basically add something here, right? If I add something here or comment out this whole thing for now before I display it, my image, if you look at it, it's going to be all black, as you can see. And the size of this image, as you can see, is 654 by 1239. So the width is 1235, 19 over 10 times that, plus 4 extra pixels, and it's 3 double, right? But here at the end, I converted it to uint8 to show the image better instead of a double. But this is what, so far, this is just filling, creating a blank or black image. Now it's time to fill in the stripes. What do? I say go from 1 to 13, which is the number of stripes. If the modulus of I and 2 equals 0, what does it mean? It means that number I is what? Is an even number, like 2, 4, 6. If that's the case, then I have the white stripes. If the modulus is 1, which is the numbers are odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, all the way to 13, those are the red stripes. And you can see that against what? Against the US flag, right? So if you look at the US flag, you clearly can see that the first stripe is red, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13, and then 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12 stripes starting from the top, because you know the origin of an image is the top left corner. So origin of any image is the top left corner. This is pixel 1 and 1, and then these are the heights, these are the width. So the odd stripes are red, the even stripes are white. So what am I saying here? I say, hey, if the stripe is white, then what do? Make sure those pixels, instead of zeros, you fill them now with ones, multiplied by 255. So what am I saying? I'm saying make sure that the red channel, the blue channel, and the green channel and the blue channel, all three channels, as you can see, make sure they are all equal to 255. This way, you know, when all three colors are 255, the color is going to be white. Now here, I need to tell you about this location. So what am I doing here? When I is 1, what is this number going to be? Border size plus 1 plus II minus 1 times the stripe height. Well, remember the stripe height is 50. If I is 1, or 2 in this case, let's say it's a wide stripe, I is 2, this number is going to be 1 times what? 50, so it's going to be 50. Border size is 2, and this is 1, so this whole thing is going to be 53. So starting from pixel 53 all the way to here, which is what? II times strip height, which is 2 times 50, which is 100, plus border size, which is 102. So basically here, in this first line, I'm saying go from pixel 53 to what? To 102, and this is the location of the second stripe. What is the first stripe? If I is 1, then this number is going to be 0, this whole thing. So this is just going to be 3. And the other one, this guy here is going to be what? 1 times 50 plus 2, so it goes to 52. So you see, for the first stripe, the number of rows that I'm making red is from 3 to 52. For the next white, I start from 53, which is right after this, to 102. You might say, what about 1 and 2? What happens to rows 1 and 2? Well, these are my borders. These are the 2 black pixels on the border. So this is your border. These 2 rows are border. These 50 rows are the red stripe. These 50 rows are the white stripe, and you can keep going. So the next one is going to be like 103 to what? To 152. Again, this is going to be what? Another red, and then you go from 153 to like 202. It's going to be another white. It goes all the way to what? To the end of the image. Height. So you see, this is how I'm controlling the location of the rows. And for columns, if you look, I go from border size plus 1 to the end minus border size. What does that mean? So if you look at the column, I go from column what? Border size plus 1, which is column 3, to what? To end. End is the size of this guy, which is 1239, minus what? Border size, which is minus 2. So I go to this guy. And this is the entire width of the image except for what? Except for 1 to 2, which has to be black border, and what? 1238 to 1239, which again is what? 2 pixels black. So this is the left border black, this is the right border black, and this is the entire rest of the width for that stripe. Okay, so you see clearly I explained how I'm doing it. Now, as I said, if it's a white stripe, I made all 3 channels 55. I made red, green, and blue channels all to 55. If it's just a red, if it's a red stripe, then all I need is to make channel 1 a red, because channel 1 is red. I made channel 1, 255. So you see here, I force channel 1 to what? To be 255. If you keep the other 2 channels, 2 and 3, which are already 0 here, which were already what? 0, that means that entire stripe should be red, because green and blue are 0, but white is 255. So if I show my image until the end of here, it should have all what? Red and white stripes, and there we go. Look, and there are 2 black pixels on all 4 directions that are added as a border. So far, I first made the black image, then added the stripes. Now it's time to add what to this top left blue rectangle. So I need to basically go here and add a blue rectangle. Now what do I do for that part? Look. First, I want to create the blue rectangle. When I looked at that picture, I found that almost the height of this blue is about half of the height. It's not exactly, you see, it's more than that. So if you want it very accurate, it's what? It's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 13. So it's not exactly half of the height. Here I used half of the height, which is not accurate. You can change that. But it's 7 out of 13. And if you look at the width of this guy, it's about 40% of the total width. So the width of it is about 40%. The height of it is about 50 or more than 50. So you see here, I said multiply 0.4 by the width. Make sure you use a fixed operator because it has to be an integer number, and then divide the height by 2 to make it the blue height. Now, as I said, the best way to do it is to say fix and then say what? 7 times that divided by what? 13. This is correct because now it's 7 stripes out of the 13 stripes. So now I choose the right size for that blue rectangle, and what do I say? I say now go from this pixel, which is pixel 3, to what? To 2 plus the blue height, whatever it is, and then again from pixel 3 to 2 plus the blue width, and channel 1, and make it what? Make it 255 times zeros. Make channel green 255 times zeros, but channel 3, which is the blue channel, make it 255 times 1. So do you see what I'm doing? I'm making the channel 1 a bunch of zeros. I'm making channel 2, so this is red. Red, I make it 0. Green, I make it 0. But blue, I make it 1. So this whole thing should be what? Should be 1. So now if I comment from this part down, hopefully I get a good, yeah, there we go, perfect. You see, that's exactly what? That's exactly 7 stripes. This blue is matching 7 stripes, and it's almost about what? 40%. Now it could be like 45% or something. I need to bring this guy in and measure it. To me, it looks like 40%, but again, if you want it 45%, just instead of here, make it 45%, okay? So you can get it a little bit wider like that. Maybe this is more appropriate. Okay, so you get it like this. Now you need to put those stars. And if you look at the stars, there are 5 rows, every other row that has 6 stars. And in between them, there are 4 rows that have 5 stars. So first I do these 5 rows of 6, then I do the 4 rows of 5. Let me show you how I do that part. So let's go ahead and uncomment this part so I can show that result to you. First 5 rows of 6, what am I doing? If you have 5 rows and 5 rows, then you need to what? You need to divide the whole blue height, the whole blue rectangle height, divide it into 6 positions, right? Because clearly you see that there is 1 blue section above this star, 1 blue section below it, 1 above it, 1 below it, 1 above it, 1 below it. So it's like 6 blue sections if you draw lines over these stars, every other row. It's like 6 sections, right? So although it's 5 rows, you have to divide it by 5 plus 1. And there are 6 stars or 6 columns, but you have to divide it by 6 plus 1 to make it what? To make it squeeze the stars in between, not on the edges. If you make this 5 and make this 6, then the stars will be on the edges of the blue rectangle, not inside of it. Okay, you do that, and then what you do in each one of those locations, and it's a matrix, right? Clearly, you need to go over a number of rows and a number of columns. So you need to use double or a nested for loop. Then what would you do? You go to a specific location in the image, which is now called flag, this variable of image called flag, and you replace a 20 by 20 window. I'll show you the size of this is 20 rows and 20 columns, and all of the channels, you replace it by the image star, which was a 20 by 20 image. As you can see, let me show you. Here you see the variable star is 20 by 20 and 3 channels. So you replace what? You replace a 20 by 20 by all channels, which is 3. Replace that portion of that image by the star image, which I showed you. Okay, so this should put all of the 5 and the 6 stars. Now, what is this doing here? What is this one, if I want to explain it? So here, I times h division, and h division is the space between the two stars in horizontal direction, and w division is the, this is in the vertical direction, this is this space between the stars in the horizontal direction. So here, I go to that location, that is the center of the star, which is II, H div, and JJV, the W div. And then from 10 pixels behind it to 9 pixels ahead of it, this total thing is going to be 20, because that location itself also counts. So if this location is like what, 20, then this guy is going to be from 10 to what? 10 to 29, so it's going to be 20 pixels. And this one too, and then I replace what? I replace with the star. So this should do those 5 rows of 6 stars. Let's do it and let's take a look. Hopefully it does the job right, because I changed it. There we go. You see, these are 5 rows of 6. Now in between these 5 rows of 6, I need 4 rows of 5. So for that, again, I use nested for loops. I goes from 1 to 4, J goes from 1 to 5, because we have 4 rows of 5 columns. And again, I read the image star and replace it in the place of the center of the star. Now, the only difference between this one and this one is, last time I multiplied II by h div to get the center of the star. Here I add II plus half times h div. And the reason is what? These half is because these new rows are between the previous rows. So if this is 1, this is like 1.5, this is 2, this is 2.5, this is 3, and so on. So by adding these halves, I make sure that what? These rows are in between previous rows, and the columns are between the previous columns, in between the previous columns. So now, hopefully, I have everything correct. Now, seems like it is picking on me on something, and it says put. Where did I say put? Seems like I just touched something without, oh, I forgot to, yeah. And you removed an extra thing that I shouldn't. There we go. Perfect, right? That's a perfect US flag. Yes, you could make these stars bigger if you wanted to, and you could make it nicer. Now you might say, why did you read an image? Couldn't you add a star from MATLAB? Is there any code in MATLAB that can add a star for you? Yes, but it doesn't do a beautiful job. Let me show you. There is this command in MATLAB called insert marker. And you can go into the image, go to a specific location, tell it that I need a star, give it a color and a size, and look at what it does for you. If I comment out this part and instead do this part, look at the type of star that it gives me. which is not really beautiful. Look at those. There is no pentagram in MATLAB like these for insert marker. You have circles, you have plus, you have X, and this is the only star that it has. And by the way, it doesn't make them white, and it doesn't really fill in them. Okay, even there is another command called insert shape. I have seen that. You can give it a polygon, and you can ask it to fill with the color. It's called insert shape. I tried that one as well. You have to give it the corners of the polygon, which makes it very hard, because not only the center of my star is changing, the location of those corners will also change. You can do it, but it makes a lot of more lines here. And then, even when you do that, still it's gonna make it black. It's gonna go black like these. It's never gonna be perfect white like those. So clearly, this is not gonna be super beautiful, right? And for that reason, I decided to insert my own image of a star. I made it in Paint. I made it 20 by 20, so it's not super big. And I decided to read that image and insert it in those locations instead of using this command, insert marker or insert shape, which are not so beautiful. Okay, so what I did is I went with this kind of line instead of this one. And you see my total code is less than 50 lines because I have a ton of spaces and comments. But now this one does a perfect job like this for you. Now, could I ask ChatGPT to generate such a thing for me? Of course not. You see, it admitted that it cannot do it, and the code it wrote is so primitive, it doesn't have any stars. Even it does not do a beautiful job in terms of the stripes. It did not even run. It gave me a bunch of errors. So hopefully this one was useful to you. And I'm going to share this with you. Or I might just type the whole command, the whole code somewhere for you. So if you want to create a US flag in MATLAB, you know how to do that, but I showed you line by line of code. So hopefully this video was useful to you, and I will see you in the next lecture. Thank you.